so let's go back and talk about those 2 points real quick. And I want to be very, very clear about what these 2 ideas that I mentioned to you are, because they're so vital to understanding this whole letter. But more importantly, they're so vital to understanding how it is that we can fight the good fight. And the first one is a sincere faith. And Jesus talked about this. Talked about it a lot, in fact. In fact, when Jesus talked about a sincere faith, one of the things he did on a regular basis was talk about the opposite of sincere faith. And he used a word on a regular basis that indicated the opposite of sincere faith. And Matthew chapter 6 is one of those places where he talked about those who don't have sincere faith or didn't have sincere faith. And he said, when you give your offerings, don't be like the hypocrite. That's the word he used. Don't be like the hypocrite. When you pray, don't be like the hypocrite. When you fast, don't be like the hypocrite. Because the hypocrites went around and wanted everyone to know how much they give, how much they fast, how great their prayers are. But he said, when you do that like a hypocrite, God won't hear your prayers. The word hypocrite comes from a Greek word. Quite honestly, it comes from a Latin word, even before it comes from a Greek word. The Greek word and the Latin word sound almost identical to the English word hypocrite. And they literally mean actor. Someone who plays a part. Do I have some props over here, guys? Bring me those. And so we're going to use this, and I'm going to show you this. But when you think of an actor, in that day, they had people who would act on a theater, right? A lot like we have today, theaters that we have today. But they did not have stages and backdrops and nice seats like we have today. Actually, it wasn't anything like what we have today. And I, for one, thank God that I get to live in a day where we can go to the movie and we can go to the theater and we can get a chair that reclines all the way back. I'm that freak that brings a blanket in. Every time I go, Meredith's like, that's just gross. Don't bring the blanket. And I'm bringing the blanket. And I'm kicking my shoes off. And so, but I love it that you can recline in this chair and you can punch the button and they'll bring you something to eat. What they haven't figured out is how to bring you something good to eat. Because what they bring is just like eating at Denny's. And so you need good food, but you sit there and it's just incredible, right? And you and I get to sit in that chair, recline with food in our laps and watch a $300 million movie that includes explosions and amazing fight scenes. Back then, that's not what it was. One guy stood on the middle of the stage and played 1, 2, or 3 parts, multiple parts. In fact, it was really boring compared to today's standards. But this actor would stand on the stage and they would play 1 or 2 or 3 parts. And they had masks. There was another mask, the white one. We got one mask today. Okay, this is what they gave me. So he had masks. And so he would put the mask on and he would play a part. Right? And then he would put this mask down and he would put another mask on, which is what I was trying to show you with multiple masks, right? And then this is how theater worked in that day. And they would put one mask on, then they would put another mask on, then they would put another mask on. It'd be funny if we had Hillary, right? And they could stand apart from one another. And this one guy is playing multiple parts. And the whole point of what Jesus was saying with the word hypocrite. Speaking of masks, by the way, have you seen Kenny Rogers lately? Holy cow. Unbelievable. Apparently he's had some work done, right? And Meredith is sitting here right here saying, stop it. Kenny might hear this sermon and he'll be sad. He'll cry. Not with all that Botox. He won't cry. It won't happen. In fact, the jowls have been pulled back tight. I've got a bit of advice for Kenny. You got to know when to hold him. Right? And so that's what Paul says we shouldn't do, right? Is put on the mask. I'm hiding myself from that because I'm laughing at myself. That was funny. And so you put the mask up, right? And a sincere faith that Jesus is talking about is when we take the mask off, right? A sincere faith is when we stop trying to be someone else. A sincere faith is when we let the mask down. It's not when we are pretending to be righteous when we really hold grudges and animosity. Or pretending to be holy when we've got creeping sin in our closet. Or pretending to be Christ-like when we've got hatred in our hearts. And when we pretend and when we put the mask on, our faith is fraudulent. It's fraudulent. Because when we pretend, God can't get to our heart to change it. And that's what He wants to do. And when we pretend and we pretend and we pretend and we wear mask after mask after mask and put on a good show for the world, but on the inside we're nothing but a whitewashed tomb, listen, it's a problem. And God says if you really want to change, you got to drop the act. And you got to put the mask down. And I just ask you today, is a fraudulent faith really worth fighting for? And maybe a better question is that what you're fighting for? A fraudulent faith that you're spending your time and your energy trying to convince people that you've got it all together and that your life is perfect. If that's the case, you are fighting the wrong fight. Hear me. You're fighting the wrong fight, because it is that type of attitude, by the way, that cannot admit that there's a crack in the armor, and by the way, that leads to the type of attitude and wrong motive, and you will end up telling other people that you're more spiritual than they are, and that you're more righteous than they are, and that you're more holy than they are, which has nothing to do with Jesus Christ whatsoever. And it's not worth it to put the mask on all the time. That you got to be on all the time, acting it out over and over and over again with all the masks that you put on, and you're really living a lie, trying to convince others, and quite honestly, trying to convince yourself. And when you drop the mask, something amazing happens. That's what Paul was trying to tell Timothy. A sincere faith, right? You don't tell yourself and tell others lies. Tell the truth. And at moments, that includes you saying, I don't have it all together. And what that does is allow the Holy Spirit to take over in your life. And he says, now I can do a work inside of you.